In Christian theology, envy is not simple jealousy. It is the corruption of gratitude itself, a spiritual sickness that recoils at the blessings of others as if they were thefts from themselves. Unlike greed, which desires to acquire, envy desires only to deprive. It does not merely want to possess, it wants others to be stripped of what they currently have. It is the most joyless of the deadly sins, because it feeds on misery, and in the process destroys the soul beneath it. Envy is the devil's own wound. The Book of Wisdom tells us that through the envy of the devil, death entered the world. Before there was wrath or pride among men, there was envy in the heavens. Lucifer looked upon the love God bore for humanity and couldn't bear it. He couldn't rejoice in another's favor, and he sought to ruin what he could not share. That is the essence of envy. It would rather burn paradise than watch another person live in it. The Bible describes envy as both root and rot. For where envy and selfish ambition exist, James writes, there will be disorder and every vile practice. James 3:16. Envy births chaos, because it cannot accept harmony. It poisons the soil of the world by making every relationship a competition, every act of grace a perceived insult. The sin of envy is cannibalism for one's soul. And if ever there were a man who embodied that slow, smiling corrosion, it is Peter Baelish from A Song of Ice and Fire. Littlefinger is one of the most poisonous and envious people in the entire book. Baelish's life is a study in resentment made flesh. Born the son of a minor lord in the corner of the world, he grew up surrounded by men whose names carried more weight than his entire house. He was clever, ambitious, and quick-witted, but in Westeros, wit without blood is like fire without wood. He was mocked by the highborn, pitied by the powerful, and humiliated by those whose esteem he craved the most. In that humiliation, his envy took root. His duel with Brandon Stark was the first flowering of this sin. The moment his body was cut open and Catelyn Tully's pity replaced her affection, Peter's heart twisted into something monstrous and vile. He learned then that virtue, honor, and love were currencies that he could never buy, that the game was rigged from the start, and there was no way for him to play at all. And so he decided that if he can't play, he's going to change the game. From that wound blossomed a new faith, not in gods or men, but in the art of manipulation. Peter Baelish made envy his ideal way of existence. He would not simply climb above those who mocked him, he would tear down the ladder itself and watch them all fall. His genius for deceit is born out of that envy. He studies men not to understand them, but to discover the exact fault line where they can be broken. He whispers into the cracks of their insecurities until kingdoms fall under the pressure. The War of the Five Kings is Littlefinger's masterpiece, a storm that he orchestrated from the shadows, setting noble against noble, family against family, and person against person. Peter Baelish is not a conqueror in the traditional sense. He doesn't build empires, he destroys them. He is a saboteur of the natural order, turning the world's hierarchy into rubble, and then climbing the rubble like it's some sort of ladder. When he says that chaos is a ladder, he speaks from envy incarnate, for envy's true nature is to turn disorder into opportunity. Philosophically speaking, envy is the most self-defeating of all sins, because it measures joy only through comparison. It cannot stand on its own. It must always look around, and so Peter Baelish's climb is endless and lonely. His hunger is incurable. No lordship, no castle, no kiss can fill the void that envy carved into his heart. He seeks what others have, but the moment he acquires it, the satisfaction is fleeting. The object of envy dies the instant it is possessed, leaving only a need for more. And that is why Petyr Baelish's downfall is not only inevitable, but cosmic. Envy devours itself. The envious man's mind is a serpent eating its own tail, always scheming, always moving forward, but never arriving. His genius blinds him, because he mistakes cunning for wisdom, and control for victory. In the end, I believe Petyr Baelish's death will come at the hands of his own creation, Sansa Stark. Not the Sansa he imagines, the naive girl he sought to mold in Catelyn in his image, but the woman forged by steel, whose innocence he destroyed and whose steel he tempered. Petyr believes he understands her because he understands how to manipulate her desire. But envy blinds him to the truth. He can't see that Sansa has learned not just from his lessons, but from his mistakes. And so his end will come, not through open confrontation, but through tragic irony, through the very kind of political trap he spent a lifetime perfecting. He will underestimate Sansa's mind, as every man once underestimated his. He will speak, smiling, certain he is still the master of the board, and realize too late that the game has changed. His student will no longer be the mirror of his envy, but the measure of what he lacks. It will not be rage or vengeance that ultimately kills him, but the desire for recognition. The moment he understands that the girl he once patronized has surpassed him, that all his careful planning has only led him to fail, that is when he will die, with the cold shock of knowing that what you coveted most has grown beyond your reach. His death will be quiet and terrible, a collapse of the intellect under the weight of its own malice, and as the blood leaves him, I imagine his final thought will be regret and disbelief, that all his calculations, all his years of deceit, would be unraveled by a girl that he once saw as a pawn. A Song of Ice and Fire deaths are never random. They are reflections. Tywin Lannister died in the filth of his own hypocrisy. Robert Baratheon died by the beast he loved to hunt. And Petyr Baelish, the man who spent his life resenting the fortunes of others, will die because he misjudged the worth of someone else's soul. Envy cannot comprehend grace. It cannot see that wisdom and goodness grow in silence, beyond its reach. And so, like all sin, it is destined to destroy itself. Not through punishment from without, but through collapse from within. Petyr Baelish is envy incarnate, the serpent in silk, the architect of chaos, the man who mistook cleverness for godhood. His end will not be loud, but poetic, the quiet crumbling of a mind that could deceive everyone but itself. And that is the truth of envy. And that is the truth of envy. It climbs higher only to fall further, until it finds itself alone, staring up at a ladder it built, and realizing too late that it never led anywhere to begin with. With all that being said, if you've made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching, and please let me know what kind of A Song of Ice and Fire content you want to see from this channel in the future, and I hope to catch you on the next one. Peace.